Hi.
I didn't unmute myself. Well, I guess it's just you and me.
Okay, well, let's get to it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the process. I don't know how they're going to see us or talk to us at all, because they have the camera directed at the, chambers.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Cool. Do whatever you want to do, Brian. Okay.
Kind of interesting. I haven't been in the chambers at all.
I haven't been there either.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody's there.
Yeah, I know we got this email saying that from Dick Martin saying that they had a meeting beforehand, and that's why they hadn't. And so maybe we should ask that William. Well, they might be having a meeting and they can't set it up, but he could always make us the host, like have additional hosts, so they can at least open the site until they can join. I don't know if he wants to do that or not, but
this is why I'm teaching remotely this semester, because I thought it's less complicated if you're not trying to do too many things.
Yeah.
I was really terrified they were going to make me teach hybrid, and I thought, oh, how am I going to deal with the classroom, the camera there, who do I press?
You'd rather put out and be here or not?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how this works. I've never done this sort of meeting before.
You wait a minute, you've been doing remote, so you've done Zoom, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't been doing Zoom where there are other people in the meeting who are not. Kind of.
Oh yeah, well I haven't either. Well, it'll be interesting to see if it isn't a major issue.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm ready to go either on my iPad. That's not my iPad on your screen, but on my computer or on my iPad, because I thought maybe they'll send us another link. And
I know. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Well, we will see.
How's your semester going?
Good. I'm buried in grading, but other than that, it's about par for the course, right? So.
Are you teaching remotely or are you teaching?
Oh yeah, there's no way I'd be on campus, right?
What do you understand about, after Thanksgiving, it says all classes are online. Do you understand that to be online as in BGSU's definition of online, asynchronous? Or do you intend to keep going
I'm
with
teaching it the same way I've been teaching it. So I teach it. Some of my colleagues do asynchronous for one day and then one day the other, because we have labs. So one day is lecture, one day is lab. And so synchronous, asynchronous. And the ones that I teach, I meet every day. All right. So and I send them off to do things, and then we meet later or we don't. So it's really
Lori and Cindy are right there.
Oh, the other Lori.
Yeah, two Loris. That's dangerous, isn't it?
I wonder if we should mute now. It looks like we might be starting. Are we going to get started?
No, you're an integral part of the meeting.
Oh, well.
But we are missing one person.
Beaverson, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So whose iPad?
Is that Beav? Rick, are you on the iPad?
My kids have to show, grandkids have to show me how.
David, do we know who's on the iPad? Okay. Then Bill will probably look to you, David, for the thumbs up on when you're. Okay.
Okay, this is a meeting of the Sidewalk Commission. The agenda has been posted. Item A is call to order, welcome and introduction. So probably ought to have a roll call vote first, or a roll call of people here. You want to do that, Jill? Just go through the list of names and we say aye.
Do you have a list of the members with you?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll do it.
So we'll do it.
Not in any particular order. Lori, Treader,
Yeah, we apologize. There are no name tags. That was an oversight too. Lori Treader here.
Ryan,
Ryan Sanner, here.
Bill, here.
Dick Martin here.
Lori
Cynthia.
Young here.
Cynthia,
I'm here.
Cynthia and Lori Young. Okay.
Mhm.
And we don't know who iPad is. Oh, okay. We will welcome him in a minute. I guess we'll go into item B. First of all, I do apologize that we are getting a late start. We had a very productive Transportation and Safety Committee meeting that went long. So my apologies. I guess we'll have election of officers. You may have noticed an earlier version of the draft minutes that had secretary as well. We do not need a secretary because Jill has been very gracious to do the secretary part, so we don't need anyone on the committee to be secretary, which probably saves about 10 minutes trying to get somebody to volunteer. So I'll entertain a motion for the election of the chair.
I move to make Bill chair.
Thank you. Brian moves. There is a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to make Bill Harold chair by Ryan and seconded by Dick. Is there any discussion? Then might as well just go through a roll call vote. You want me to do that, Jill, or? Okay. Lori Treader,
Yes.
Ryan,
Aye.
aye.
Yes, aye.
Cynthia
Aye.
and Lori Young.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Vice chair, election of vice chair, which is what you would think the vice chair is if the chair is not able to do something or the chair has something for someone to do and cajole the vice chair to help, and that's the position of vice chair. I move that we make Ryan the vice chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded for Ryan to be vice chair. Any discussion? Then we'll go through another vote, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to go this way every time. Lori,
Aye.
Ryan, I
Aye.
was hoping you'd say aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Dick?
Aye.
Cynthia,
Aye.
Lori. Young.
Yes.
Okay, now we've got that done in record time. And just because I like things like this, we now have as chair and vice chair, the first chair that ever was on the Sidewalk Commission and the most recent past chair that was on the Sidewalk Commission, which is, I think, pretty cool. All right, item C, approval of minutes of most recent previous meeting held on July 23rd, 2014. Let's take a moment to let that settle in. Few of you were here. Lori, myself, Ryan, and Dick were here. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
This we can do an all eye on. So all those in favor of approving the minutes of July 23rd, 2014, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Excellent. Wow, just like that. Okay, item D is passed. The original ordinance, I included the original ordinance with the packet that was sent out, and we certainly don't need to go through a lot of it, but I would like to read the three whereases for the original ordinance, just to give us a perspective on why we're here. And that is, again, this was passed on July 16th, 1984. Whereas it is seen that citizen input is needed for determining sidewalk construction repair locations, and whereas the absence of sidewalks and/or damaged sidewalks can, on occasion, be a safety hazard to the citizens, and whereas the city desires to encourage an orderly plan of determining sidewalk repair construction priority. Now, therefore, et cetera, for the rest of the ordinance. So that's why we're here. And safety and taking a little bit of the load off of the city, as well as providing citizen input. So that's the original ordinance. And then I also included a copy of the first 4 pages of the first Sidewalk Commission meeting, which was October 18th, 1984. I don't generally do that kind of math that involves looking in the past a whole lot, so we'll skip the math on how long ago that was. I did want to bring up one very brief part of that, and if I can find it. Councilman Harold then explained the provisions of the ordinance. It is an ordinance creating the Sidewalk Commission of Bowling Green and providing a mechanism for handling sidewalk construction and repair by adopting various sections, et cetera. So again, that's why we're doing it. The first section of the ordinance says we're going to have a sidewalk commission. And in terms of the actual wording of the sidewalk commission and its responsibilities, that did undergo a revision back in July, well, back when this previous meeting was held. That was part of the reason for the meeting. And so it has undergone a bit of an evolution, but as it's shown on the top of the agenda and worthy of reading Part A, current wording for what the mission is of the Sidewalk Commission, and something we need to be laser focused on. The Sidewalk Commission shall determine those locations of the city that need sidewalk repair or new sidewalk construction. The recommendations shall be based on pedestrian safety. The priority list shall be subject to available city funds as appropriated in each calendar year, and those city funds are determined by a vote of City Council. So that is part E of our agenda, E1. And I think that at this point, there's several themes. One is, why are we here? And that's to increase safety and provide recommendations to the administration and council on what areas of the city to tackle. Anyone that has walked in Bowling Green knows that there are certain challenging areas of Bowling Green. And our role is to partner with, most directly, Public Works Division. So it's a partnership. And I would love to have our Public Works Director, Brian Kraft, come up and explain the description of how the various roles of the Sidewalk Commission and Public Works Division. And then we'll be able to segue into part F, which is discussion of Public Works Director. And when I said including topics shown below, I didn't really mean F2 and F3 as much as I meant on the flip side of the agenda. And then also Brian was trying to provide an updated list of sidewalk possibilities. So Brian, if you don't mind, I would really like to hear from you and have you go through all of that.
Okay, thanks, Bill. I think one thing maybe to start off from is where we left off in 2014. Back in those days, we used to get CDBG money, and we would come to the Sidewalk Commission and get their input on where we could use that CDBG money, either for new walks, or areas where missing walks, or areas that needed refurbished walks. Well, that kind of changed. I think we're still coming out of that recession period and all that. CDBG money went elsewhere. And at the same time, Complete Streets was becoming on board, and City Council at the time gave us some direction to go do 50/50 sidewalks to kind of fix up people that have sidewalks that need some assistance, both financial assistance and get their properties taken care of by fixing the sidewalks. Not too long ago, we also changed the code for the width of sidewalks from 4 feet to 5 feet. So if there's new sidewalk construction, those walks are now 5 feet wide. And I think you saw that kind of on Fairview a lot, a little bit in front of the high school, on Conneaut where we could. What we're doing on South Maple's 5 feet wide, Clay Street's 5 feet wide. Anybody that comes across somebody on a sidewalk face to face, someone's usually getting off the sidewalk. 5 feet, it's kind of weird. One more foot makes a big difference, but it does. So for the last several years, we've been doing 50/50s. We've been all over town on a voluntary basis. People call me, and what usually happens is you're on a street doing, Bill's house, and Bill's neighbors on each side say, "Hey, can you do mine?" Next thing you know, you're doing 4 or 5 properties. So we've kind of had to respond to that by being prepared to not bite off more work than you can get done, and be ready to add certain sidewalks you wouldn't have on your list. So we've got a lot of work done in these neighborhoods. What we really like to do moving forward, what we're doing right now is we're scattered all over town, and we're getting sidewalks done here and there. We just did some on Ada this summer. It was going to be 1, it was 4. We really like doing long stretches of sidewalks where it's more economically feasible. It's more efficient, both for your dollar and for your time. And one important thing is getting the grade right. The last thing you want to do is get Bill's sidewalk fixed up to the grade it drains properly, but you got to go back down and meet a sidewalk that's too low from being there for 30, 40 years. So when Bill wanted to reconvene the Sidewalk Commission, we thought one thing we could do is maybe partner with the Sidewalk Commission to see where can we do long stretches, where areas that have been suffering for years, maybe do just wear and tear of their sidewalks, where we can start at one point, go a long ways to the other end, and increase the width, bring them up, and the grade problems they're having, and help them drain. What happens in the winter, those sidewalks don't drain, they freeze. It becomes a slip and trip hazard. You got tree roots in some areas that have heaved sidewalks. We've used flexi-pave in some of those areas to save the tree. We are a tree city, and we're trying to work with the tree commission to keep our trees. So we use a flexi-pave, which is a rubberized compound, lets the air and water go through and save the tree roots can kind of move without heaving the sidewalk. So that's been successful. So what's going to come out of this is every other year, we want to do a voluntary program like we have been, still to give people an outlet to call us. When they call me, last thing I want to do is say, "Oh, that's long gone. You're on your own." Because I think what we've found is contractors don't really, if anybody calls a contractor and says, "Hey, I want to do my sidewalk," I think what you're going to find is they're very high price, because usually what's happening is contractors are already busy. If they're going to get the job, they're going to make profit, a good profit doing it. But no one's really willing to pay thousands of dollars for maybe a 50 or 75 foot wide lot to get our sidewalk done. What we can do with our staff, and the guys are really professional at it, and I'd put them up against any contractor in their quality of work. We can go in there and rip that sidewalk out and get it done in a matter of days. And I charge $6 a square foot for 4-inch sidewalk, and we split that right down the middle. And most people are, yeah, where do I sign? Sort of thing. So it's been really good. But one thing we want to do is back to these long stretches. So giving me the opportunity to not turn people off, we want to keep the voluntary program. So we thought we'd still have that next year in 21. And then thereafter go to the list where you guys would help us define long stretches. And then in that following year, so that would be 22, do those long stretches, and then go back to the voluntary list, and then back and forth to the list you guys have selected for us.
And excuse me, Brian, for those of you following along, it's the flip side of the agenda is where Brian is right now.
So, from Roman number 2 there.
Yeah.
So 2020, we're doing the voluntary. We're just had finished up. We're still on South Maple right now. 21 be another voluntary. I got people already calling me about next year. And the nice thing about 21, it allows you guys time to convene to talk about the list. I think you probably want to get some. You want to get some feedback from the citizens.
Oh, nice.
In the list I gave you, we're not going to knock that off very quick anyway. So, but at least it gives us a roadmap on where we can go and a trajectory, how we want to go, and gives the Sidewalk Commission time to work with the folks out there. And it gives people time to, if they've got maybe a wide lot and we're going 5 feet wide, it gives them time to save up some money to help fund it. So one option we also gave was discussion if someone's really harmed by not being able to afford it, maybe they could come to the city council and talk about maybe having it done over 2 or 3 years on their tax duplicate with Wood County. So I think I've covered everything we've wanted to go over moving forward and where we've been and where we're trying to go.
The key is, again, the theme of partnership. It was very good for Brian to lay out the general idea of what from year to year. One thing that I'd like to mention that's different from 1980s, well, I think there's more than one thing, but the point I'm making is that back then we did not have the in-house capability of putting sidewalks in.
Yeah.
And so it was very important to have stretches identified because we would have to go out to bid and have a contractor come in and do the work. And it would be way too expensive if they had to go all over the city. So it was back then, it was new sidewalks where it was needed for pedestrian safety. We concentrated on school children's safety, walking to school. And then also identifying stretches of road like of sidewalk, like Brian mentioned. We have, because of the expertise on Brian's staff, we now have the ability where we can do what he's been doing, and that is do a lot of it in-house at a lower price. So it's really a golden opportunity. And I can tell you from experience that, in fact, you can just go as far as Clay for an example. We're very interested in neighborhood revitalization, and having new sidewalks just really upgrades the appearance of the neighborhood. So
And new
pedestrian-
curbs.
And oh yeah, and curbs are wonderful. Save the streets and so forth. So it's, I guess my point is, this is an important commission, and so that's why I'm excited to get it going again. Brian, did you cover what you wanted?
I sure did. Yep.
Okay, thank you
Thank you.
very much. Sometime, if you have the time, make an appointment with Brian to just simply talk for an hour about sidewalks. Very impressive. Now, Brian's discussion has concentrated on sidewalk replacement for good reason. I do want to make sure that we understand that it involves new sidewalks as well. And so kind of our charge, if you will, is to take a look at the current list, and we've got plenty of time to do that. We don't have to do it tonight. And maybe, when the weather's nice, take a few walks, go walk throughout the city, get an idea of some areas that you may want, maybe have some idea of prioritizing this. The Sidewalk Commission doesn't have to worry about money. And what I mean by that is our job is to come up with a priority list. And certainly, if there's 2 projects that are going to be less expensive versus one that's more expensive, that's a trade-off you may want to make. But ultimately, it gets to the point of determining funding. And there's many demands on the city's budget, but the way I view it is our charge is to come up with a list in working with Brian. And then it's up to those that put the budget together to figure out how much money to put to it. In other words, we do our job on the commission and then let the powers that be figure out the money part. And that also includes new sidewalk construction. So I've been way too dominating this discussion. I apologize. Let's have some, just so I don't feel like I'm monopolizing the time. Is there anyone that wants to say anything before we continue on with the agenda?
Well, I have a question for Brian. Of the ones you have listed here, most of those would be replacement, would they?
That's correct.
Except for a few that you have on the bottom.
That's correct. I think the only one that would be new would have been Conneaut.
Okay. When I was on Sidewalk Commission eons ago, I know we had a request in at that time of a sidewalk from, and I don't know the name of the subdivision, it's Indian Ridge or Indian Crossing. It's off of Gypsy Lane into, they wanted a sidewalk to take it into toward Main Street. There are some sidewalks once you get past there. And right away, as I recall, was an issue. How big of an issue is right away when we look at putting in new sidewalks in areas that don't have any?
Oh, it's huge. And that's kind of, in Clay and South Maple. Right away, and those older ones sometimes vary from 40 feet to 50 feet, and the new subdivision at 60 feet. You get industrial parks, you're in 80 and 100 some feet. The right of way is not only for roads, but it's for sidewalks, but it's also for street lighting, utility poles, fire hydrants. Tree commission wants to put trees in. Those trees have to go on the boulevard. So like even tonight, we want to talk about bike lanes. What are you willing to give up to gain a bike lane? And you're going to bury the utilities under the ground. That's an expense. So you're going to lose the trees. That's cost people some hardship as well. So like in the particular one there on Gypsy, you get in those areas, more rural, you got ditch issues, ditch problems. And then now in this day and age, to enclose a ditch is the phrase act of Congress, or almost is with the Army Corps. And we've talked about Napoleon Road for years, heading out towards Carter Park. There's a ditch there as well. So it's the right of way really is the number one driving factor. And it's hard to get more right of way unless someone else triggers an expansion. The city can gain more right of way through that development. But to go back in these older areas, pick Sandridge Road, to put a sidewalk down Sandridge Road, especially when the road falls off, it's difficult. That's why there's not one there now. But there are certain areas where you could maybe find another way to get there. Do you do something down South Winter Garden to try and tie in Deer Hollow, and up Sand Ridge and Gypsy Lane the other way, sort of thing. But so that's it. That's the key, is right of way is really number one driving factor where you can and can't easily put in sidewalks.
And that's worse with more established neighborhoods.
Right.
For example, I know years ago there was a push to have sidewalks put on Winter Garden between Poe and Conneaut. Because back then it was some people that were not adhering to the speed limit. But by the time you figure out, there's people that have put their shrubs, there's trees, there's utility poles, and the idea that now somebody's front yard, they're going to have less front yard and people are closer to their home. So it's a real challenge. But you pick your battles, and there are occasions where it does make sense. I'd like to talk about one in a minute, but does that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as we look at new sidewalks, certainly some of our decisions are going to be probably made by whether it's feasible for the right of way, which is probably more important than the cost of the sidewalk.
Yeah. What I did in the first one on the list, for example, is West Wooster on the south side from Grove to Eberly. The reason I picked that is because I know we're going to be paving West Wooster in about 2022. The north sidewalk was fixed about 4 or 5 years ago when the gas company came through and put the new gas main in, and we added some funds in there to fix the rest of it, or they didn't. So it's all new walk pretty much from, say Church all the way out to Haskins Road on the north side. You see people jogging on all the time because they have to look down for a crack. The south side, still is that old sidewalk. So when you get done on 22, be new pavement, new curb, new sidewalk on the other side. Now you've kind of got that complete street things we're talking about, where people can use that. You look at some other streets that South College, a lot of college kids walk up and down South College, and half of them are, on their phone, and sidewalks are not the best. And so you pick areas where you're gonna get the most use. You picked areas where I think they've been kind of lacking for years. But we're also trying to pick areas where I know we're going to do some street improvements that it makes a good sense then to maybe follow up behind and do the sidewalk. So when you walk away, you can say, well, that street's good for a couple of decades. So but there's a lot that goes into it. So
Cynthia, Lori?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Bill. I have one for you, of course. I'm sure, no, Brian, don't go away because I'm going to be asking you a question too, please. What the process is going to be for asking questions, right? So I notice I can't seem to find a wave your hand, raise your hand feature on Zoom. So and I'm always concerned about interrupting, but I'm also concerned that some people, especially when they're online, might not be heard. I don't have a problem with interrupting, but other people might be more polite than I am. Brian, I wanted to understand the process, if you could explain it to me again. I think you touched on it, but I want to make sure I get it. When you're talking about sidewalks that have been, there are sections in the city, because I walk it every day, that have been paved to a standard. And then there's a section of the sidewalk in front of a house or a rental property that has not been done. And then it goes back to a section that's been finished. And I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You said that we're looking for larger stretches of sidewalk to do for the expense, but what is the provision to take care of getting these sections that are irregular taken care of?
well, I think I understand what you're saying. We like the longer sections because what invariably what you find is sidewalks that over time are sunken into the ground. And we want to take all those sidewalks out, usually raise them up several inches. So now they have positive drainage to where the water drains off the face of the sidewalk and it doesn't freeze in the winter. And it's much more efficient for our guys to do that, where you're doing long pours, a whole truck at a time, knocking out the whole neighborhood instead of jumping around from place to place. Because if I do yours and we raise yours up, but your neighbor is still down, it takes me about 10 feet for the ADA requirement to get back to them down to their grade. And I'm going to his property 10 feet, basically just to match his kind of garbage sidewalk. And to be much more efficient to keep that 10 feet up and go all the way through his, all the way down to the next block sort of thing. Does that answer your question?
Well, it kind of does. I'm not sure it's going to address the issue that the sidewalks that weren't done in front of the residential or business properties, rental properties that weren't.
I'm not sure
Excuse me?
if you guys can hear me or not. I apologize for interrupting. What we do right now, this is Rick, Public Works Superintendent. What we do right now is sometimes we'll go in and if they don't get on our 50/50 program, we'll grind down those sidewalks and try to make them as level as possible. I think what we're looking for is the sidewalk commission to come in and say, okay, this whole neighborhood needs to be redone so that we don't have to go in and try to put a patch job in to fix a problem that's going to be continuously existing.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to say, I don't know if I clarified it, but I'm talking about a section of sidewalk that was not ever done when the sidewalks on either side of this resident or was done, right?
Right,
And
so a section that's missing, Lori, is that what you're saying? So
yes,
like
that's
you'll go
exactly right.
along, yes.
Thank you, Lori. Yes. So we have a section that's missing that was never fixed. And then the other two are to standard, or they had been redone. And so we have this variation. And what I'm hearing Brian say is that it's best for them to come through and do the whole thing. And my question is, what are we going to do about these sidewalks? And, that there are parts of them that are very damaged, that even though they might want to wait until the next 5 years or whenever they're going to come back to do the whole, block and a half or 2 blocks in that stretch, so everything's equal, what are they going to do about these areas where the sidewalk is really damaged and broken and a risk to individuals?
Well, either you're fixing them or you're not. And we're looking to the Sidewalk Commission to give us some direction of where the bad walks are to go fix.
Okay.
In the meantime, the sidewalks that can't be fixed are just going to have to wait until we get there. The liability is on the property owner. Anyone that has a sidewalk, the city ordinance is very clear. The duty to maintain and keep clear sidewalks is on the property owner. So we're trying to provide them an option, either the 50-50 or the Sidewalk Commission is going to say, let's go fix these sidewalks because we recognize this is why we're here. We're trying to fix bad sidewalks.
Mhm.
But there's only so much money to go around and we can't get them all fixed at one time. There's certain subdivisions based on the plat that it was introduced into the city where there's a plat line, the sidewalks just end. And the newer
Right.
subdivision came in, they required sidewalks, the sidewalk begins. And it's kind of like what Bill was alluding to. Now to go back 40 years later and try to retrofit a sidewalk in there, it's irrigation, fences, basketball hoops, mailboxes, shrubs, bushes, the doghouse and everything else. So that's the challenge that we're looking for you guys to give us some direction, because what we'll do is we'll go out in those neighborhoods, we'll start evaluating them, trying to find the path to put that in and send those property owners a letter saying, hey, here's your share of this sidewalk project.
Right. So
And the other one-
basically, I'm understanding that if there's a section, it's not going to be dealt with. And if it needs to be dealt with, like a section of it has to be fixed, it's up to who to send a letter to the owner, to the property owner. And
If my
and
office
other
gets
than
calls
that,
about bad sidewalks, our office takes care of that.
okay. So
Yeah.
other than that, we're waiting for whenever it's on the schedule to be addressed for that
Right.
whole block.
Yep.
Okay.
Usually my letter goes something like this. Hey, Lori, we got a call. Your sidewalk is bad. You got certain sections bad. You need to make repairs. Here's an option for you. We have a 50-50 sidewalk program if you're interested. And usually people call back and they get on the program. So that's
Right.
usually how those get addressed.
And Lori, just to add to that, part of our role is if there is a situation like that, we can address it by recommending. And in a sense, there's the possibility that we end up being the lightning rod for saying, okay, this is going to be fixed. It is going to be fixed. It will be on your tax duplicate, and hopefully they'll avail themselves of a 50-50. And there is a sufficiently elaborate appeal process so that if we did do that and say, you know what, we've got 90% of this block is superb, but there's 1 or 2 places that really need work. So we come up with our recommendation and pursue that. And if they cooperate, fantastic, everybody wins. If they don't, then there is the provision for either working with them or just saying, well, it's going to be taken care of. An example, although it's it was the first project that the Sidewalk Commission had, was way back in the 80s. If you picture Conneaut Elementary School, there was no sidewalk on Conneaut between Haskins and McKinley on the south side. And on the north side, it picked up about 4 houses to the east of McKinley. So there's a huge stretch of Conneaut with no sidewalks. And you got kids from Belleville walking to school. And there was no sidewalk for a considerable stretch, including the curve, on Guston. And so the Sidewalk Commission met and said, this is our first project. We're going to put sidewalks there. So we put forth a proposal for sidewalks on Conneaut on the north side only, and sidewalks on Guston on basically the south side only, because you got a hill there, and Kettner. And some of the residents in Kettner said, basically, this is Kettner. I mean, it's not that busy. We don't really need sidewalks. And the commission worked with them and said, yeah, you're right. So no one else objected to it. And the end result was sidewalks that, increased the safety of school children. So there's a component of initiating, prioritizing, negotiating, and then just going ahead. So
Yes,
I would-
thank you. I was just looking for the general synopsis, so I understood the process, but thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. And concerning your earlier question about if you have something, raise your hand or whatever. Normally, I tell people if I don't see that you need something, just throw something soft at me, but that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
So just speaking is fine. I don't think anybody will consider it to be rude.
All right, good. Thank you.
Anything else before we move on? Thank you, Laura. That's important for our discussion. Okay, then I would like to spend a little bit of time on F2. And when I was spending hundreds of hours last year knocking on thousands of doors, I got an idea of certain areas of the Fourth Ward. I admit it's pretty much delegated to the Fourth Ward, of various needs. And believe me, I know areas where there's need for sidewalk. And with that, council has for the last few years been trying to prioritize getting a sidewalk and possibly bike path from the more central part of Bowling Green out to the community center. The most direct route would seem to be Haskins Road, but that's got a few problems. So there was some discussion and actually some work years ago to put a less permanent path to the community center. So that is a council priority. And then I've noticed that with Cogan's Crossing, which is the area north of Bishop, where there's give or take about 100 homes, and there actually has been in the past fatality of someone that I believe they were on their bike. And so to me, folding in having a combination pedestrian and bike path from the central part of the city to the community center and then continuing it on to Cogan's would seem to be definitely safety related. There doesn't appear to my non-engineering eyes to be a clear-cut solution to getting out to Cogan's. But what I would like us to discuss, if you all deem it worthy of our time, is the possibility of recommending to council that next year there be not the construction, but to have engineering look into the various possibilities of routing it and the difficulties and how to overcome it, because it's not straightforward. The Bicycle Safety Commission met, forget if it was the August or September meeting, where they did recommend that be pursued. And I thought that it might be beneficial for us to discuss, and I'm laying my cards on the table. I'd like it to be a recommendation to do the engineering study on that. So having said that, does anyone that wishes to discuss it, I would certainly appreciate the comments.
We did it like 2 years ago, the stone part.
Right.
And I don't know if it's all like grass now.
Yeah, it's kind of.
And I don't know if a lot of people would. I never use it much. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Oh, can somebody explain to me Cogan's Crossing? I'm familiar with Bishop. I'm familiar with the where the community center is.
Right.
Where are we talking about this path to go? I guess I would need some more information.
Well, that's a good question, Laurie, because it doesn't seem to be straightforward. There's challenges on a number of different routes. That would be part of what engineering would decide, is take a look at various possible routes. Does Brim make sense? I don't honestly know. There's not a whole lot of different options to get from Cogan's, but it would seem to be, again, something to look into. So that's a good question.
Is the Cogan's, is that subdivision that's over by Brim and Bishop?
Yes.
So wait a minute. So, okay, wow. So we're going to build something so that they can go to the community center too? And then other areas aren't going to be included?
No, they would go down to the branch off to the community center and then continue on to possibly using the same road that would go to the community center to get to the central city, the more central area of the city. So those 100 homes or so would be connected
To the
by
city?
that bicycle sidewalk.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would like to see what we have. Now, I'm not a part of the commission for the cycles or the paths. I'd have to go back and look at the various meeting notes that had come up for the east side that talked about when they were going to do the bike paths and the share roads. And I guess I would want to see that, because I don't know if I mean, I respect and appreciate the idea that we have a community that would like to have bike paths, but I think that there's so many areas within town that might need more share roads and other ways to be connected. That
Yeah.
And that's not our job for Sidewalk. So I guess I'm a little more conservative on wanting to make a decision on that right now. There's not enough information for me to want to be able to say, yes, let's move ahead.
Okay, the move ahead that I'm requesting is just to have engineering look at the feasibility and come up with a game plan. So it's not the actual construction.
And I get that, but I don't know if I agree that it should be focusing on the addition of that one subdivision, though I'd like it because I've gone down that way up to Union Hill Road, and riding a bicycle is treacherous. I get that. But I just don't know if that's the only thing that we should consider. If we're talking about a sidewalk that's going to go to the community center back to the downtown area. And then are we having it reach out multiple areas, or is it just to that one subdivision? And that would be a concern I would have.
Okay. Any other comments?
Cynthia figured out how to raise her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to say that I agree with Lori that, well, I live on the east side too. Maybe we don't have enough information right now to decide whether or not it's a good idea to ask for an engineering study. I do think we should consider our master plan for the city, and is that part of the plan? There was a lot in the master plan about bicycle paths and improving especially that whole corridor between the university and downtown. And I feel like the city already spent a lot of money putting that plan together, and we kind of need to use that as to help guide us.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I will circle back a little bit though to say that I agree with Ryan that, when you're putting in a path like that, where it's stone, you
Yeah.
don't see it being used. I think that anything we put in needs to have at least an asphalt pavement to make it worthwhile, because,
That do it right.
yeah, do it right.
Good.
Any other discussion? Okay, well, I am not sensing enough for a motion, so we will move to item 3, other potential recommendations. Well, we have the luxury of the list that Brian's put together and the luxury of time. So with our next meeting, which is item I, we can come back with a discussion about the priority list, which I think is something that Brian would like, although next year is scheduled for the 50/50. Item G is lobby visitation. And we have that because by city ordinance, all city boards and commissions need to have in their meetings a lobby visitation portion. I know it seems a bit problematic in these times, but is there anyone that wishes to address the Sidewalk Commission? H is good of the order. Now, I and J are next meeting and adjournment, so anything for the good of the order other than next meeting and adjournment?
Bill, how would you expect that commission members between now and then would take that list and come back with a priority, or are you wanting that ahead of time so you can present something? How would you like us basically to produce what it is, once we do our homework on that?
It's a good question, Laurie. I would say that since there is probably going to be a few months between now and when Brian needs us to meet again, as that gets closer, Brian may have a revised list, and then each of us will have gone through the list and possibly added something, maybe shifted the priority. And so as it gets closer to the meeting time, Brian can send out a revised list, and then we'll just meet and work through the list. I'm not sure whether it would be needed for everyone to do email exchanges or anything like that, but certainly I would assume that if there are questions by any of the Sidewalk Commission members, Brian, could they feel free to contact you?
Yes, I would say on anything on the list, or like the bottom one says, if you have somewhere else that maybe we didn't consider, let me know and we can take a look at them.
Thank you. So does that,
Yes, that helps.
yeah, it's good to set expectations. Anything else for the good of the order? I just want to say how pleased I am, not only that the Sidewalk Commission is back together, but the talent that we have on this commission is very impressive. And I appreciate each and every one of you for what you bring to this commission. Next meeting, I think, Brian, you were saying like February or something?
Yeah, February seems to work good because, November, December, we're kind of consumed by the budget. December and January, the holidays, winter kicks in and we're fighting snowstorms and stuff like that. Sometime early, mid-February, we got a holiday there in the middle. We can reconvene and that gives us time. We've got plenty of time to work on it, but yet we got other things to do too. This should help us go down the priorities set by you guys, and then we can start going out measuring up each location, because the first thing we'll do is measure up the properties, evaluate them, send a letter to the property owners and let them know that, hey, you're part of a long stretch of sidewalks can get repaired, and basically here's your cost and when the money would be due. What we didn't want to do was send people a letter in March of whatever and say, hey, you owe us some money in 30 days, and then obviously that would not go too well. If we can do it saying, hey, it's going to be due 13 or 14 months from now, that's a little bit easier pill to swallow for a lot of folks. So if it's February, I think it gives us enough time to take a look at the ones you've selected and start getting notices out to the people that are affected.
And that would primarily impact 22. But we also, when you come up with your list of 50-50, if you got more money than, or that never happens. If you have more properties than money, and you may need to do some prioritizing there, is that something that February is soon enough for the advice, the recommendations from the Sidewalk Commission about next year's 50-50? I know you already got some of them lined up.
Yeah, you kind of confused me there. We're the standard 50-50, the voluntary one, has never been a problem getting that done and organized.
Okay.
All we look to you guys is for the 2022 year is give me your top 1 and 2. And by then I think we'll know a little bit more how we're in the middle right now of an unsure budget situation, but by then, hopefully it's a little bit clearer and I can see, do I need 3 streets? Do I need 2 or 1? And we can go out and get those letters sent out. And I think what we're going to find is the first one we do, was it too much? Did we not do enough? And trying to find that sweet spot to find out exactly how much we can do. Because these same, one thing I want to make clear is these same guys that are doing the sidewalks, the same guys doing brush collection, doing crack sealing, Durapatching, and other things all through the spring and summer. So leaf collection. So we've kind of carved out some time for them in the summer to do things like this.
Right.
So if you get us that top 2 list, I think we can make a go of it.
Then I would say that since this is an advisory recommendation body to assist you, if there is occasion where you do need some sort of a input, that we are at your disposal.
Thank you.
And as far as the next meeting, I'm not going to set up a day yet, just sometime early to mid-February. Bear in mind that if you all are going to be doing research on sidewalks and conditions of sidewalks, mid-January might not be the best time. So bear in mind that sometime between now and then, the sidewalks might be covered with snow and ice. So sometime early to mid-February. Is there anything else before I entertain a motion to adjourn? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Rick. Second? Y'all want to stay, huh?
Second.
Thank you, Lori. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned.